We only partner with companies that we really believe in and what we actually apply and practice in our daily lives. We've been wearing Vivo barefoot shoes now for over 6 years, and literally it's the only footwear we wear. They're offering a 15% discount to Happy Pear listeners with the code HappyPear15. And there's a 100-day money-back guarantee, so you've nothing to lose in terms of trying them.
And really, if you think about it, your feet are the foundation of your movement. All your movement stems from your feet. And when within a matter of months, your feet will become 60% stronger. That's from recent studies that they found. And really, it affects your hips, your knees, your joints. We found in our own experience that our feet have become stronger, our knees, our hips, our whole body alignment. And really, if you think about it, a lot of people put just standard shoes on their kids, which tends to restrict the movement and restrict the strength and whatever. They've got a full range of shoes for the full family. Do check them out. 100 days money back guarantee, so there's nothing to lose. The code for 15% off is HappyPear15. We couldn't recommend it more if you're interested in trying barefoots. VivoBarefoot.com.
Hello and welcome to the Happy Pear Podcast, where we explore life, finding meaning, finding more significance, and also just finding more joy in your day.
Yeah, more joy, ease, peace. And it really is. We get so much joy out of this. And thank you so much for your time, because I know you could have clicked on loads of different things here. And we really do our best. We value your time and we want to make this as useful as possible. So thank you.
So I've got a big, deep question for you.
Great. Love these ones.
Right. Who's your role model? Or do you have one? Or do you have many?
Over the podcast, I definitely have a number of people who I've kind of gone, they are people who I deeply admire, respect, and I would like to be more like them. So I would definitely think Matthias Schouten. Yeah. I really look forward to spending time with him. He was the professor of ecology. He's the professor of ecology, the Dutch guy who we did an episode with a few weeks ago, and he was just deeply, like, I literally came off that episode and said, I have found my leader. I will go to Holland and spend time with that guy. And I'm going over in March and I'm going to go spend
what
have lunch
is
with
the
him.
attributes within these people that you've gotten that? Because I'd say they probably all add up.
And the same way, like Jerry Hussey is the same. They have a wisdom to them, something which is more eternal, and it's more based on how do we find more joy and ease in our life, rather than the kind of how do we collect more stuff or how do we gather more information. It's like, how can I live with more joy, more ease, more peace on my daily basis? Because the more our relationship with myself is better, the more the outside is going to reflect that.
And
I'm going to throw a little curveball. My role models are my children.
Oh, I love that.
Because Ned is the epitome. He goes slow. He's in the moment. Don't bother me. Theo is incredibly articulate about his emotions and teaches me so much about him. And May just has this grace that I am eternally envious of.
Because it's good, because I was actually going to ask you, what age do these cover? Because I would say I'm deep in my little mini role model right here, which is you, Mr. Ralph, and how to find everything so interesting and to slow down.
Marvel,
and Ralph is 4 months old, in case you're wondering. Sarah's newborn.
Yeah. Well, he's not newborn anymore. I think you're only newborn till 2 months.
Oh, well, so now he's a toddler.
Moving through the phase of Sarah Fawcett.
But I do love that, because I mean, people always talk about the surrendering of motherhood or fatherhood, whatever it is. And like for me anyway, there's no better way to meditate or anything but to slow down with a small infant, because they don't give a shit what you're doing, anything. They'll have, they just want you to be present in that exact moment. Ralph will go from laughing to crying in a split second. You're like, whoa. And it's just because he's feeling real time his real emotions, like he is right now.
I suppose they are, like, ultimately the best teacher ever in teaching us how to be more in tune with nature and more in tune with life.
Well,
the actual flow of life. Yeah, he is. And that's why yesterday we were going for a walk and we met two ladies, and we were walking along and I was carrying Ralph, and they were like, oh, do you have a new baby? And I was like, no, it's Sarah's. And they were kind of like, the way you see people around young babies, and they kind of remind me of Dementors nearly. Yeah. That kind of like, oh, this is the source of life. And Dementors is the wrong word there, but there's that just absolute envy and deep admiration, because it's almost like we're looking energetically at someone that's just something that's connected to the source of life.
I don't know where I heard it, but something that like small, like newborns have a similar kind of mental frequency as that of an enlightened being. And it wouldn't surprise me.
I heard that too.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me.
Because they can totally meditate into the present moment. Oh, sorry. Ralph is, my little enlightened being right now is looking for my attention.
On that note, we're going to talk to you just about this week's podcast. It's with Dr. Dana Cohen. So she's best-selling author on the book called Quench. It's all about hydration. It's all about water. It's all about 90% of people, so that's almost everyone listening to this podcast now, is typically dehydrated. And there's so many takeaways in this practical, short, elegant episode.
Yeah, this is one of the most practical episodes because it's something that's applicable to everyone and it's something which we do every day. She talks about the importance of, I'm not even going to get into, but the importance of eating water, what you can do, how you can stack your day up where you can naturally be hydrated. And as she said, it can be such a massive source of energy, of well-being, and really helping amid so much diseases.
I loved when we got into the topic of the structure of water and how water has intelligence.
Yeah, there's a memory to water. So without further ado, we give you the wonderful Dr. Dana Cohen. She's a practical, integrative, functional medical doctor and best-selling author of the book Quench.
And she's based in New York City, in Queens. Here we go. Without further ado, the wonderful Dr. Dana Cohen.
Hi, there you are. I'm so happy to see you guys.
Oh, yeah. Likewise. Oh, good on you. I like your art there. I think it looks pretty cool. It looks like you're in some sort of Roman, I don't know, looks cool.
Awesome. This is my apartment in the city.
Where are you based?
New York City.
New York.
Wow.
I'm actually in Queens.
Oh, cool.
Just outside of the city.
So what is the doctor of hydration drinking?
Oh, Pellegrino.
Pellegrino, so fizzy water.
Fizzy water, yes.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
Nice, great. Well, I love what you do. We've really enjoyed digging into you over the last couple of days and learning not learning all, because you could never learn all about anyone. But yeah, it's really wonderful to have you. It really is. And after meeting you on that chance at the cafe, it was great. It was really, really lovely. Dana was in Ireland there a few weeks ago. And I met you at the cafe over the coffee machine and it was brilliant.
Yeah, we were there over New Year's, visiting dear friends, and it's a funny story, and I've told everybody because I was so excited about it. So I love everybody. Somebody feed Bill. Like, I love that show. It is the most joyous, fun show. Like, he just brings so much joy. And my best friend told me you have to watch the Dublin episode. So I watched it and I didn't even know where you guys. I just heard outside of Dublin. I didn't pay attention to where you were. Every time I've been to Dublin, I never leave Dublin. I've never been to the West Coast because I never want to leave my friends that's there. And so we were going to Glendalough, and instead of them coming through the city to pick me up, we took the train to Greystones. And so he said, let's have lunch. I know this place. I've been dying to go to it. And he said, it's called the Happy Pear. And I was like, oh.
And
funny. So it was meant to be.
That's gas.
Phil was over in Ireland last week. We had dinner with him last Monday.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I just adore him. What a just bright light of sunshine.
Yeah, he's a fun man. And his whole family they're all good.
You did a one-man show. It was brilliant.
Yeah, it was
really,
brilliant.
really good theatre show.
Yeah. We're actually going to see him in New Jersey somewhere. And he's doing it. I guess he's traveling, this one-man show. So we'll see.
Yeah,
great.
Very good.
Well, I'd love to bring the conversation onto hydration, because I'd love to kind of start it off with just getting a context of, like, you've been a doctor for a long time, functional and integrative doctor.
You made a pains with that one.
I did, yeah. Well, they're big words.
Integrative.
But I'm wondering about
integrative.
like dehydration. What percentage? Like, obviously, this is going to be impossible to calculate. But like, of your view and your experience with dehydration, what percentage do you think of us as a population? Like in Western culture and in first world countries, what percentage of people do you reckon are dehydrated?
So, my opinion is probably 90% of us.
Wow.
Including my yogis and my athletes that come in, the ones who think they're doing fantastic. I think none of us, really do it right. It's very rare to find somebody who does it really right. But, the number that seems to go around is 75% of us. And the difference is you want to differentiate between overt dehydration, which we know as doctors what that looks like. You've had vomiting and diarrhea whenever you end up in the ER and your eyes are, popping out of your head. That's overt dehydration. We're not even talking about that. We're talking about this subclinical or low grade sort of day in, day out dehydration that we all experience unless we're on top of it at all times. It's the one thing in my practice that I really am a stickler for, meaning, diet. I subscribe to the 80-20 rule. Give me 80% and I'm really happy, but hydration, I really want 100%. You need to be on top of it day in, day out, hour by hour. And we could talk about what that means and what that looks like. It's hard. It's really hard because there's no simple test or no simple measurement, but we all have to sort of live in our bodies, not be cut off from the neck down, know what it feels like to be properly hydrated, and then stay on top of it. And thirst is not a great measure. It's if you're thirsty, you're already too far gone.
Yeah.
So,
and for men, it's kind of almost easier when you stand at a urinal because you can see your urine. Whereas I think for women, it's harder because you tend to sit and it's not as, your hardware is different. So you've got to kind of make an intentional effort to look at, what color is my urine. Whereas for a man, like it's harder not to look than it is to look. You'll kind of go, oh, geez, it's very yellow. I better have a drink of water.
Yeah. So, it turns out, and since my book, the book's actually about 4 years old. Since then, that I no longer think that actually looking at the color of your urine is such a great way to measure dehydration. It's okay, meaning, if you in the morning you look at the color of your urine and you know what your concentrated urine should look like, and then by the end of the day it's clear, then that's sort of, you kind of know. But it turns out it's not the best way to know if you're hydrated. The best way is to actually look at how much urine output you have in a day. So I think if the one thing that you can take home today is we are meant to urinate every 2 or 3 hours during our waking hours. And if you're not doing that, then you're not hydrating well enough. And I think that that's a really important thing. I know I'll sit at my desk 8 hours straight, never get up once. And I'm like, oh, what am I doing? You forget. And we also condition ourselves to do that because we want to work harder and we want to, or we don't, we want to take an 8-hour drive somewhere we're driving, so we don't drink purposely. It's important for many reasons. Number one, you're getting up, you're stopping, you're moving. But it's important to pee every 2 or 3 hours. It's a really good, I think that is like a very important marker to think about.
Yeah, that's nice. I like the fact that you're moving it on from urine, because urine is the one that people typically look at.
Yeah.
One thing in the context of water, when most people feel tired, they tend to turn to coffee, chocolate, alcohol, whatever upper or stimulant of choice. But typically our primary fuel source is oxygen, then it's water, and only the third level it typically is food. I wonder if you could talk about the importance of water for energy.
It's so interesting. Water is absolutely a source of energy, and and people are just now really starting to think about it differently. Energy, it might get a little technical, but energy, we know that food or glucose is what makes ATP in the body. ATP is our source of energy. So that's what our cellular energy is. And when you start to think about, how, like we don't make that many ATPs to give us this kind of energy. And there's, first of all, I'm sorry, I want to just take one step back. There is so much we don't know about physiology. Nobody does. Doctors don't know. Scientists don't know. It's always so surprising to me when we learn something new in science. You think because we're in this day and age, we know everything. We don't. And there has to be some other source of energy in our body. And I'm here to say that water is absolutely a source of energy. It's an electrical source of energy, so it moves electricity through the body. But it also, there may be, and this is not science now. This is theory. It may be a source of hydraulic energy. The way that water moves in and out of the cell actually creates hydraulic energy, which is interesting to think about. So yes, water is a source of energy. In fact, there's not a podcast that I don't do that I don't say the single most important thing that you can do to treat and prevent chronic disease, first and foremost, is hydrate. It's that important. And in fact, when was it? Just not that long ago, maybe a month ago, there was a new study by the NIH. I'm sure it was big news all over the place. They did a study of over 15,000 people, and it showed that people who are low-grade dehydrated are more at risk for chronic disease, diabetes, and early death. So that's the first that's ever really been talked about. Really exciting study that was done, and so everything I've been saying for the past 4 years is absolutely true. First, start with hydration. And when you talked about food as energy, I find so much more often in the afternoon when you're experiencing that dip in energy and you're like, oh, my blood sugar must be dropping. I need sugar. I need food. more often than not, it's hydration. And if you start with hydrating first, you won't need that afternoon boost of sugar. So
that's very good. And in terms of like, so I know you're a big believer in terms of eating your water. So eating your water sounds like a crazy thing, but I'll just give a context. I've got like 2 daughters, and I remember they came home from one day going, Dad, can we do the cracker challenge? The cracker challenge, see how many crackers you can eat in a minute? And this is like dried crackers, you know, and you think, and they say, I bet you can't eat 2 crackers. It's like, oh, of course I can eat 2 crackers. I can eat 15 in a minute. Come on. And you start the challenge and you start stuffing these dry crackers in your mouth, and they suck all the moisture from your mouth. And I couldn't eat more than 2 crackers. I couldn't eat more than, I couldn't believe it. Only 2 crackers I could eat. And I realized that the food we eat has a massive effect on our water levels. And it's the same way, like this generic rule of, oh, you should just drink 2 liters of water a day. And it's like, well, if I live in Ireland where it's very damp, you know, my skin absorbs water. Whereas if I lived in the Sahara Desert, 2 liters of water wouldn't be enough. So it's a very generic term. And if I ate just cream crackers a day, I'd need a hell of a lot more than 2 liters of water. Whereas if I ate just watermelon a day, I wouldn't need to drink much water. So I think there's so much is individualistic to what you're eating. But I'd love if you could talk about food and how we can eat our water.
Yes. So what you just said is so perfect and absolutely true. In fact, it's believed, you know, that 8 glasses a day came from sometime, they think in the 30s or 40s, but originally it included, like the way that they looked at how much water we need to drink included foods, and then it sort of got somehow watered down, no pun intended, and then somehow turned to 8 glasses of water a day. Nobody really knows where that came from, but like you said, it's absolutely different. How can you say a 5'2" sedentary person needs the same amount of water as a 6'2" athlete that sweats all day long? You know, it doesn't make any sense. So I want to talk about the work of Dr. Gerald Pollack. Are you familiar with him?
No, not at all.
No. Okay, so this is the reason I wrote the book, because this was mind blowing to me. He's a water researcher. He's based out of the University of Washington in Seattle. And he and many other scientists believe that there's a 4th phase of water. So we know that water exists as liquid, ice, and vapor. We now know that there's another phase of water. They don't all necessarily agree on exactly what that is, but Dr. Pollack has one of the best theories, and most people do really respect and agree with him. So think about that. We've always been taught that we know that's a big discovery. Water, we know what water is, and now you're telling us there's another phase of water. So it's believed then that 4th phase of water, which you may know as structured water or gel water, it goes by a lot of different terms, but it's in that 4th phase that's believed that it exists in nature. So think about things like desert plants, aloe and cactus. You open up an aloe leaf and there's all that gel. Now that's not just water in there. There's other things, but that substance is loaded with this other phase of water. And basically it's how those H2O, the water molecules, how they layer upon each other. And it's in that layer, and they share electricity, they share electrons, and they become a different, they form a different type of energy. They hold on to energy like a battery does. So that's one way of how we store energy in our body through structured water. But going back, so the how it exists in nature, and it's also believed how it exists in our cells. So the idea is you eat more of nature's water by eating more vegetables. That's basically, that's why your book is so, I love your book, by the way. The one I have is The World of the Happy Pear, the first one. It is so beautiful. And I've been really looking at it. It's just wonderful. And we need to, the bottom line is we don't have to all be vegans or vegetarians. That's not at all what I'm saying, but we absolutely need to eat more vegetables for many, many, many reasons, minerals, those kind of things. But to get more hydration and water intracellularly, the idea is that we're eating our water. So yeah, there are people who come to me and say, I only drink 1 glass of water a day, but I look at them and they're pretty good. They're fine. Some people only need 1 glass of water. It just depends on what you're eating, how much you're eating, the food you're eating. Things that dehydrate us are processed foods. Those crackers are super processed. There's nothing in them, our environments. You do live in a very moist environment. That is absolutely one of the things. I have people tell them to put a cup of tea at their desk and breathe the fumes. Those fumes are hydrating. So we do get hydration through our skin. Absolutely. An airplane is one of the most dehydrating environments, and people know it. You come off the plane and you're parched. Your lips are, chapped. So, yeah.
And the thing about eating fruit and vegetables, the water in it is distilled. So you're getting a higher quality water than, say, bottled water or tap water, which often has been treated in all sorts of ways.
It's nature's already filtered it for you. Yeah. It's incredible. It's so great. There was also another, so I am writing a new book that's coming out. It's going to be more of a, basically a blender book, how to change your lifestyle by adding some blends in. And it's not only smoothies. It could be, mocktails. It could be desserts and all kinds of things using a blender. But there's going to be the science there. And one of the things is, fairly recently, another big study that came out that's saying people who eat more than 30 different plants a week have the most diverse gut microbiomes. So that is really important. Our guts are a mess, from all the damage that we've done to it in the past, between, from antibiotics and steroids and hormones and all that stuff. We need to really work on the bugs in our gut. And those people who eat more than 30 different plants a week have the most diverse, which is a good thing, gut microbiomes. I want to say something. When I went to your restaurant and I had the Buddha bowl, I tried to count how many plants were in that, and I couldn't. I think I had my week's worth in that one bowl, which, by the way, lasted me 3 different meals, and it was unbelievable. But when I say 30 different plants a week, I'm talking about vegetables, fruits, spices, nuts, grains, all of it. Anything that's grown in nature, that's a plant. So it's not just, people think, oh my God, how am I going to get 30 different, vegetables in my diet a week? It's not necessarily that. We need to play around with some spices and all kinds of things. So I highly recommend this book to try to figure out how to play around with some of those recipes.
Very good, very good. I know everyone listening will kind of be going, okay, hydration, this is wonderful. This is so applicable and it's so relevant to everyone. It really, really is. And obviously we talked about urine and you said, okay, going to the toilet every kind of 2 to 3 hours, make sure that happens at the least. And I know a couple of other ones, I've heard you say, is you press your skin and you see that if it springs back reasonably quick. Or
it's actually this thing. You want to pull up pinch the top of your hand. Yeah, that's kind of a thing, and just sort of see how it bounces back. That's, these are all
how quick should it bounce back? Because I'm sure everyone listening is now grabbing the back of their hand, going
quickly,
quickly,
it
like
go
1
right
second, or quickly like 5 seconds, or quickly like half a second.
Half a second. It should go right back.
Yeah, got you. Okay, I'm
yeah.
Right,
I think I got it.
I'm going to give myself that one.
The other, the finger tech, I have nail polish on, so you can't see, but these are all, they're not really great. I mean, they're really better if you're super dehydrated, then it can give you some ideas. So if you push on your nail, you want to see how quickly it fills back up with color. And it should be also pretty quick. I talked about the thirst. So let me just have another discussion about thirst. So first of all, we lose our thirst mechanism as we get older. So that's one reason why thirst isn't a good thing. But I said it a little bit earlier too. We teach ourselves to ignore our thirst, because we want to be more productive and work harder and sit at our desk or not stop to have to go pee. So we ignore our thirst, and then it becomes lessened over time, decreases. So thirst is just not a good marker. If you're thirsty, you're already too far gone. You want to stave off that thirst. You should never really be thirsty. I think some of the things, the more important things are, some of the symptoms of dehydration, obviously the things we all know: constipation, headaches, dry skin, dry lips, any dry mucous membranes, dry eyes, those kind of things. Joint pain, muscle aches, fatigue, going back to that afternoon fatigue. I think that fatigue is first and foremost dehydration. Try hydrating first before you go and say, I have chronic fatigue. It may be, it's definitely a big thing. I see a lot of chronically ill patients but start with hydration before you start on any new diet or any new supplement regimen or any new. Just learn how to hydrate. And the good news is it takes 2 days. 1 or 2 days. That's you'll know it. It's very fast. It's not hard. It's fast. Everybody can do this, and it might mean drinking more water, it might mean eating more vegetables and grabbing a green smoothie every day. I think that I'm a huge green smoothie fan. So I think blended greens with water and whatever else you want to put in there, like fruit or ginger and lemon, not yogurt. I'm not talking about like that becomes then ice cream, or even milk or protein powder. Then it becomes a meal. But a green smoothie, just blended greens with a little something to make it taste good. You're getting vegetables. It's a cheat, basically. It's a way to cheat yourself into getting more vegetables. Easy. I can't tell you how many lives I've changed by just adding one green smoothie a day to whatever they're doing. It is life-changing for people who have never tried it.
And simple and highly accessible, which is great.
Yeah, everybody has a blender.
Yeah.
Everybody does.
Yeah, totally. To go slightly out there, like I know when I do sleep most nights, but generally when I sleep and if I have a cold or a blocked nose, a lot of the night I'll be breathing through my mouth and I wake up much more dehydrated than if I actually nasal breathe. So I wonder in terms of, is part of the issue with dehydration is that so many people now are mouth breathers because they have, I guess, lost the ability to breathe through their nose, which is a lot more efficient.
Yeah.
You get a lot less moisture loss. And I wonder, is that a contributing factor for why so many people are dehydrated?
I definitely think so. There are ways, I'm not an expert in this, but there are like YouTube videos and ways to train yourself to breathe through your your nose at night. I think that is a big deal because it's also filtering your air, that moistens your air. The other thing about sleep, one of the other big aha things that we recently learned is that we the largest part of how we detoxify happens in our sleep at night, and that was never really known before. And a new I want to call it an organ or a new system has only recently been discovered. And it's called the glymphatic system. And it's this channel in our brains of how we, lymph is in all of our body. And nobody could really knew before this, how does the brain detoxify? Where does it, because there's no lymph in the brain, how does it get there? And they've discovered this glymphatic system. And that is when we sleep, is when we detoxify the most. So that's why when you wake up in the morning, your urine is really concentrated because we have done all this detoxifying overnight. We haven't peed overnight. And it is a little dehydrating. And then with the mouth breathing also. So yeah, you have to, once again, if you start during the day and learn how to hydrate better during the day, you'll be better off at night, regardless of whether or not you mouth breathe. But I do suggest that people who mouth breathe check out some of those YouTube videos on how to train yourself to breathe through your nose. I think it is absolutely worth looking into.
Yeah, Dave for a long while taped his mouth. Do you still do it?
No, I've trained myself to sleep my side, so I don't really breathe through my mouth anymore.
Is it working?
Yeah. So far, I have a few off days that I noticed. Like last night, I made it through most of the night, but then towards the end, I noticed I'm going to shut up anyway. I'm not going to talk about my own personal sleep. But okay, so back to the rehydrating thing. A question is, like, I see people and they've got these massive, like, it's almost like a 4-liter canister of water, and they're bringing it around with them, and they're going to the gym, and they're like, I'm kind of going, oh my God, like, you're just going to be drowning yourself in water. And I just wondered, like, there's you see so many people now walking around and they go to the gym with their water, and water, they're always carrying it. I'm kind of going, can we drink too much water? Like, is this an issue as well? Do you see any instances of this as a doctor?
All the time. And those are my yogis, my hot yogis, the ones who do Bikram yoga, where they sweat and they drink, and they come in and they're like, I drink so much water, but I can't quench my thirst. And so what's happening is, and you talk about challenges. There was that gallon water challenge that's going around. It's still going around because Tom Brady does it, which, he's fine. He's great. He knows how to take care of himself. But people who are drinking a gallon of water a day are probably having problems. So what's happening is you're drinking what I call bulk water, which is just plain water, nothing in it. You're sweating, and you're peeing out all your electrolytes. So you need to replace some of those electrolytes. And it can, and so one of the things you should look for if you're drinking a ton of water is, are you getting leg cramps? Do you notice that? Are you fatigued? Are you quenching your thirst? If the answer is no to those, then you're not doing it right.
And what is an electrolyte, Dana? Sorry to stick my hand up. I know we
Sugar
went on a
and
big
salt.
run and we used to...
Sorry, I go on tangents.
No, I'm fascinated. What is an electrolyte? Just for anyone listening who kind of like me goes...
So
water.
The main electrolytes are sodium, calcium, potassium, magnesium. These are they're minerals are electrolytes basically, and they're what helps structure our water. But we need them to pull water in and out of the cells. They're in charge of our sodium pump in our bodies. So we need electrolytes in order to regulate our fluids in our bodies. So when you are drinking plain water with nothing in it, sweat is loaded with electrolytes. You ever taste your sweat? It's salty. So if you're sweating out those electrolytes and you're not replacing them with electrolytes. And that can be a problem. Now, it's hard. I think people who are doing that and not quenching thirst, you could definitely do an electrolyte, mix. Like they have all kinds of things now, supplements that you could put a little scoop in. You don't need to do it in every single glass of water that you drink a day. But the other thing you could do is just real salt. Like real salt is a brand, but I mean real salt, meaning natural salt. So salt that either comes from a salt mine or the sea or, Himalayan pink salt. That salt has the full spectrum of minerals in it. Like it's not just sodium and chloride. It has all the other minerals in it. So a little pinch of salt, and maybe I say this, trick number 2, a green smoothie a day is one. Number 2, every morning, have a big glass of water, put a little pinch of real salt in there with a squeeze of lemon, suck it down. So front load your water. That's what I call it. So you're already starting your day by sort of drenching your organs with a nice big glass of water and some minerals. And in fact, that's the way that desert people hydrate. So they don't carry around a big glass of water, or a big jug of water. Maybe they do nowadays, but they didn't before. So before they would go on their journey, they front load their water. They soak their organs.
Like a camel, pack it all in. Keep it there for a few days.
And in terms of electrolytes and minerals, I've never only when we've gone on big crazy runs have I taken electrolytes. But if you're eating plenty of fruits and vegetables, they're just going to be packed with minerals anyway.
You don't need them, right?
Yeah, I don't think you need them. So I think for anyone who's listening, going, "Oh crap, I need electrolytes. I need to start putting these things." Like my own understanding is that if you're eating lots of healthy food choices and not a lot of processed foods and drinking water, you're going to get your body's going to have so much electrolytes anyway. Am I right in thinking
exactly?
That? Yeah.
Totally. That's exactly true. But if you're drinking a gallon of water a day, then it might be beneficial to put a little salt or a little electrolytes in 1 or 2 of those. If you're getting leg cramps, if you're fatigued, if you're not quenching your thirst, it's hard. It's very individualized. Once again, that individual, everybody's different. Everybody, so yes, you're absolutely right. Once again, those people who are eating well may only need 1 glass of water. And by the way, speaking of overhydration, I see at least once a week a person who comes in, I check their blood, and they have low sodium and low chloride. And when I question them, how much water are you drinking? I drink a ton of water. So they're drinking so much that their electrolytes in their blood are off. And we used to think that that's very rare. It's not rare. It happens. I see it at least once or twice a week in my patients. So people, you can absolutely overhydrate, and and you don't all need to use electrolytes. But if you are a big sweater, like if you sweat a lot, not a big jumper,
I like that.
If you sweat a lot, and you're maybe an endurance athlete, you go for a long time, then it's a good idea. I actually have a little recipe for a homemade, sports drink in there that has glucose and that kind of thing. And I'm not a big believer in forgive me, Gatorades and those kind of things. They're loaded with artificial junk. So there are ways to do it better.
Yeah,
totally.
Brilliant.
On the topic of structured water, you mentioned that the addition of kind of lemon or a little bit of salt adds a bit of structure to your water. I remember reading a book a few years ago. It was by a Japanese scientist, and he kind of...
Masaru Emoto.
Okay, that's his name, yeah. And he managed to take, I can't remember what would you call the photos again?
He was taking water, and it was showing that structured water, that if you actually, that water... it responds to our intentions or our thoughts or our words. And he'd kind of say, thank you to the water, and then look at it under a microscope and take a photo. And it would be these incredible kind of snowflake
and then
patterns.
Similarly, he'd go, hatred, I hate you, water. And then the structure was totally different. And similarly, he'd play classical music or he'd play kind of death metal. And it was quite a different response in terms of the water crystals and the structure. I wonder, what do you believe in that? And
as a doctor,
and given the fact that we're in or around 70% water, the human body or physical system is, what do you think of that kind of concept? And is there much truth to that?
I love it. So, my co-author Gina is the expert in that. She's an anthropologist. She's a little more sort of spiritual than I am. I'm very, I had to fight her on everything. I was like, there's not a lot of science behind that. We can't really write that. Like, everything in the book is very sort of science-based as much as we could. And but I will tell you, I do think that there's absolutely something to it. And there are scientists now that are studying water memory. There's actually published stuff. I'm no expert in it. I haven't really quite followed it. I do believe it. I mean, I think that there is, it's living, water is a living thing, I think, so that's my advocacy for that kind of thing. But I don't have the science behind it. So I think it's interesting. I do know that there's Harvard scientists that are studying water memory, and maybe if I have a chance this weekend, I'll go back to it and send you a link if I can find some good research on that. But I think there's something to it for sure.
Yeah, I find that absolutely fascinating. Even I know myself, when we have a farm just up the road, a 4-acre farm, and we dug down 90, I think we didn't, I say we, meaning this wonderful big machine came and it drilled down 120 meters down, and we found an aquifer, and the water from there, you drink it and it's just like, it's like you hear the kind of, the music comes on, and you're suddenly going, oh my God, this is beautiful. I feel deeply connected. It feels much more like you're getting water from a more pure source, and it feels more like
And I remember years ago I was traveling, and I went to this it was like a commune type place, and there was all sorts of extreme people of all different type of interests and whatever, and there was a real kind of health. They were very health orientated, and there was a couple of them were all into like they were, what was it called? It was
breatharian?
No, it was flowing water. The water, they would only drink water that was like moving. It was like, it had to be moving water because that had a different energy. Now, as I said, these were extreme people, but I understood that kind of like they'd go out and collect their own water in big glass bottles from a natural spring or a flowing, and it was pretty extreme. These were they were very healthy looking people, and they'd very bright, vibrant eyes. And I remember going, there's probably something in it. It's not for everyone. Yeah. Most of us live in cities, but it was, I don't know if that's, obviously you as a rational doctor, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so there is absolutely something to it. First of all, for me, if I found an aquifer on my property, I would think I found oil. Like, what? So that's incredible. Good, congratulations. That's
Thanks,
really awesome. It's interesting. I wonder how old that aquifer, how long it's been there. Like, that's really, really fascinating. So yeah, that when I said that structured water lives in nature, we know. So like when you're at a waterfall, that water is different than water from a non-moving source. That water is loaded with structured water. It feels different. It has different chemical properties. The other thing, there's something about the electrical energy that goes through that. It's electrified. Think about when you go to the beach. That water is moving. There's energy, and we touch upon grounding in the book. I don't know. Are you familiar with that term?
Yeah, love it.
So we touch upon it. There's a little science. There was a wonderful, beautiful cardiologist, Stephen Sinatra, who's since passed away, who I knew very well, and he wrote a book on grounding, and he's a Yale cardiologist, and very interesting stuff. So there's something about the electrical energy of that water that's different, and that water, that waterfall water, that flowing water, that aquifer water. First of all, it's filtered, it's mineralized. Like there are different properties to it. There's a great website, and I don't know if it's in it by you, but in the States, called findaspring.com. And I always get eye rolls when I say this, but the best way to get your water is go bring bottles there, fill it up, take it home. But it's a huge amount of work. We're filtering our waters. We're filtering everything out of it. There's no, you got to replace those minerals. But yeah, it is absolutely the best way to do that.
Yeah.
And it doesn't take a scientist to tell you that.
Yeah, they used to call it living water. Now that I think of it, was living water, and it like when you stand there by the gushing river or the water coming out of the ground, you go, yeah, it's living. Like it's. Whereas I think of the tap, I look at the tap in my back garden and I go, geez, that ain't. It just the pipes that are going into it, they can't inherently be. They're very different than the water naturally flowing in water.
It's energy. It's all energy. You feel it. You feel the energy. You go to the beach and the waves are coming. You feel different. You're immediately uplifted. You go to a waterfall. I don't know about you. I get so you feel that energy. It's absolutely different. Just you know it. We need to live in our bodies. We need to listen to what our bodies are telling us too. Once again.
Even when you spoke about the intelligence water, if you think about it, even in the Christian faith, there's, what's it called in France? Lourdes. People would go to Lourdes to be healed because they believed the water had healing properties. And even in Ireland, like back in kind of pre-Christian times, people used to have wells and kind of, these were areas of healing, and there'd be ribbons left that St. Bridget would have blessed that would help heal you. Like that there is...
and maybe it's the intentionality and the belief
I don't know, even when we were in London...
I love that.
Yeah, even recently we were in London and we were talking, and Zach Bush was at a little small event, and we were talking to some investor who was trying to launch using the administration of medicine through water. And it was like water was the carrying vessel because water had the ability to capture intelligence. And pretty out there, not sure if there's much in it, but I was certainly like, wow, that is cool.
Well, now we've got
totally.
Okay.
Totally. I mean, think about holy water.
Yeah.
It's blessed. I never thought about that before. That's actually, really, and it goes back to the Emoto stuff. It's the attention of what's going into the water. Water has memory. I think there's something to it, and I'm going to find those articles for you and send them.
Cool.
Brilliant.
I'll read them.
Okay. I want to bring this back into solid, tangible stuff in terms of hydration, because everyone listening's going, right, that's really interesting, but what about me and staying rehydrated? And I wondered two things which I believe are very important in terms of hydration. Number one is movement. I'd love to understand how movement is important to hydration. And number two, the sun. I believe the sun and vitamin D3 or something that is some component in terms of hydration as well. Could you maybe talk about that and what your research has found?
The other huge big idea in our book, which has was never really talked about before, is that movement is a hydrating act. And what do I mean by that? So a few years back, there was a very brilliant French, I think it was a plastic surgeon, did a video to study fascia. Fascia is it's the tissue that surrounds every cell, every organ in our body. It's this connective webbing that surrounds everything. Fascia was not talked about 5 years ago. Now it's big. Everybody's talking about fascia. And so what this French doctor did is that he stuck an electron microscope under the skin of a living person. Prior to this, we never studied fascia. Like if you were looking at a cadaver, it's a dried, desiccated cadaver. You'd dissect and go straight to
a dead body, isn't it?
A dead bat.
Yeah. Sorry.
Dead human.
I'm sorry.
In
medicine.
I wasn't sure yet.
Yes. I'm sorry. In medicine, you have gross anatomy and you get cadavers and you open them up and you look at the organs, you look at the vessels, and as you're cutting into to get to the organ, you throw away everything that before that. You don't, it's not looked at. So he put a electron microscope under the skin of a living person and studied it. And what you see is that fascia is it's a hydraulic pump. It basically, so a hydraulic pump moves water. So the idea of, you got to move your joints to lubricate them. We all know that. We've all said that. Now we absolutely know why. So when you are doing this, you're moving fluid in and out of your brain through your spinal canal. Twisting moves fluid up and down. Another reason why sitting is the new smoking, right? You're squelching, stopping delivery of hydration to your periphery, to your feet. So movement is a hydrating act. It's super important. We have a menu of movements throughout the book, and they're simple. We call them micro movements. We made them up. This is not This does not take the place of exercise. This is in addition to exercise. So it's funny because at this point, everybody starts moving. And when I talk about this, I can see you guys
I see myself wriggling. Yeah.
You're starting to fidget. And I see it all the time in my audience is like, they're all starting to like, move in their chair, which is great. We're all meant to move. And in fact, they show that people who fidget live longer, which is really interesting.
That's one for you, Harold Craston.
Yeah. So another reason why we need to stop yelling at our kids to stop moving in classrooms, like let them fidget, let them move, let them get up and go get a drink of water and come back to their seats, So movement is super important. And just, a third idea and third trick, before you get up in the morning, or as you get up in the morning, before your feet even hit the floor, just move everything, wiggle your toes, circle your ankles, go from your toes to your head and move everything, twist, turn, and then start your day from there. And do it throughout the day. Like, whenever you find yourself sitting in a chair, think about hydrating. Sorry, I just shake my old thing. Movement is super important. So,
I've been on the lookout for a secondhand treadmill, which I had one a few years ago. I had a treadmill.
You haven't been looking that hard. I think you're talking a good game there, Dave.
I've got two. No, Shiv's been reposting things on the local Facebook group to try to find a secondhand treadmill. A few years ago, I turned one into a desk and I put the top of it in. I just put a plank, or Dennis put a plank across the top of it for me, and I'd walk and type. And I just found it amazing how my mind functioned better, and I was amazed how much heat I generated just walking at a really slow pace while working. And just like, I definitely want to get back into it because it just seems so much more sense in terms of like we all sit so much, whereas our bodies are designed to move, and I think they function much better in terms of moving.
It's nearly contrary to modern thought, the idea that movement lubricates your joints. You know that way? It's nearly...
Well, it's a bit like, your muscles only absorb protein when you strain them. Your bones only absorb the osteoblast. They only absorb the calcium when you strain them again. And I guess it's the same with the joints. Unless you move them, the water or the fluid doesn't move around.
Yeah. So the video is called Living Fascia, I think is what it's called. And it's, first of all, it's beautiful. Like, you have to see it, and you see the water moving along. But they're finding that it's also our fascia generates electricity. Also works as a neurological system. So, much that we thought only nerves generate, neurotransmitters and thoughts, our fascia also is a way of that neurotransmitters and nerves and electrical energy is transported as well. So it's fascinating. We're really just starting to tap into the whole sort of fascia. The other thing I used to say, body workers, massage therapists and physical therapists, they know better than anybody that what a dehydrated body looks like versus what a not dehydrated, and how easy it moves, and how after you have your massage or your physical therapy, how much better you feel and how much more loose you are. So yeah, it's and movement is imperative. It's just
amazing.
Imperative. And in this day and age, I love this reference. We used to have, when you drive, you have to, if you pull out of your driveway, you have to sort of turn your head around to look behind you. Now we have everything is so easy and so, meant for ease that we have the camera in front. We no longer have to turn our heads to even do that. So we have to make more of an effort to move our bodies in ways that we don't. Anthropologically, children are born, and this is kind of a made up number. I don't know the exact number. Let's say 300 different movements. By the time we're 40, we have something like 40 different movements.
Wow.
We don't move as much as when we were kids. So we need to exercise those and keep everything limber and moving.
Well, you can even, like, I was seeing something recently where it was saying that people that are born now without wisdom teeth are the next kind of evolution of the human gene, because the way wisdom teeth, we take them out of our heads nowadays because they go. So people that don't have them, it's the kind of evolutionary, the next stage of it. And I wonder in terms of movement, because we have become so much more sedentary, are our bodies changing over generation because we don't move them as much? Like, people sit longer than they do sleep. Like, on average, the average person sits for 9 hours a day. So I think we need to be rebels and really go against this. Anyway, yeah.
Scary.
Okay, another thing I thought to talk to you about is, which is very important, and most people listening will go, what about coffee? What about coffee and what about alcohol? Does that keep me hydrated? Or is that,
Okay.
are those diuretics? And what is a diuretic? And if I drink a coffee, do I have to drink 2 glasses of water to counteract that? If I have a pint of beer, do I have to drink 2 pints after it? Or how do these impact hydration? And
I have good and bad news. Which do you want first?
sure, hit us with the bad stuff first and we'll end on a high note.
Okay. There is no alcohol. There's no light at the end of the tunnel. It is absolutely dehydrating. Your liver has to work hard to metabolize it. So the idea that Guinness is good for you, it's kind of not. Sorry. Although I did enjoy some Guinness when I was over there. And I think it's fairly low alcohol, isn't it? Do you know what the alcohol percentage of Guinness is?
I think the 0.0 one's
really
low.
Very smart, Dave.
Yeah. So there's a lot of iron in it. There's, so there are some other things, but but alcohol, there's no, and in fact, there was just a recent study that's saying 0 alcohol is really what we should all be striving for. I think that's unreasonable. We have to live in this world, but, so I do subscribe to if you're going to drink, a glass of water in between every drink is the way to try to do it, and limit, you have to kind of limit how much alcohol you're drinking. Coffee, on the other hand, is anything under 4 cups is not a diuretic, so it doesn't pull out fluids. A diuretic is basically that it just helps you pee. So there's some really good things about coffee. Now, if I were to drink 4 cups of coffee, though, the caffeine would make me crazy. So you have to also, once again, individualized. I can't handle 4 cups of coffee, but there are people who can, and they like that amount of caffeine. I highly suggest that you do it earlier in the day because it can affect your sleep. Caffeine is a drug. This is not the caffeine. This is not the caffeine talk, though. The talk is about hydration. So coffee does count. Anything under 4 cups. Tea also, it depends on how strong you like your tea. The same kind of thing. There's a set point of that caffeine that it then becomes a diuretic. But herbal tea is fantastic. Drink as much as you want. That's a great way to get hydration in. So coffee.
What about black tea and green tea? Black
But
tea.
for any coffee drinker, that's great news.
It is.
Because there's this kind of urban myth that coffee's a diuretic and I shouldn't really drink coffee. It's quite acidic in my mouth. I'm not sure if it's good. But to hear that's not the case, it's like,
Now in Ireland...
I get that all the time.
Yeah.
In Ireland and in the UK, people drink a lot of black tea. And I wondered, what about black tea and green tea? Are they diuretics?
Well, I don't know. So that's the problem. I don't, because the caffeine, there's a certain set point. So I'd have to look. There is a study, I think we have it in the book, that of the amount of caffeine in those 4 cups of coffee. Now, is it 4 cups of Starbucks coffee or is it 4 cups of your at home, not so caffeine? There's a set point in the amount of caffeine. And I know you guys like your tea pretty strong, and so I would say that there is a point where it can become a diuretic. So I would limit, the amount of cups of tea to maybe, also 4, 5, 6, that kind of thing. And green tea, I think there is decaffeinated green tea that you can do that is a great alternative to do.
Well, I think there's tons of other benefits to green tea as well. Certainly, in terms of mental health and skin health and everything. For
sure. The EGCG, there's tons of research that is, that's the catechins in that green tea that is really important for us to have as antioxidants. Great for you. But I just want to also go back to the coffee. There's definitely better coffee. There's organic. There's, try to get ones that don't have a lot of mold in them. There's all these things that are coming up with coffee that, it's, you get your eye rolling because it's a problem. The more we search, the more we learn and the better we'll do over time. So.
Brilliant. I've got 2 more things I'd love to ask you. So me and Steve, we recently had a breakfast challenge where we both made our own preferred breakfast. And we asked people on Instagram who they preferred, and people preferred Stephen's porridge.
Thank you.
I'm not a bad loser at all here. But I just wondered, I was reading some of your stuff this morning and you were talking about the benefits of chia seed pudding, my preferred breakfast. And I'd love if you could talk about chia seeds and why chia seeds are, you talked about gel foods, this 4th new wave of water. Yeah. And I just wondered in terms of chia seed pudding, chia seeds are amazing because they absorb water up to 10 times the amount of their water. And I just wondered if you could talk
their volume.
Their volume. Thank you, Stephen. Could you talk about chia seeds?
Yes. Chia seeds are the star of the show. As far as hydration. Did you ever read the book Born to Run?
Yeah,
Scott
Yeah.
York.
Yeah,
No, he
so
was the
those
guy.
are the.
It wasn't Scott York.
But he was
No,
the main guy in
he
it.
was the guy, whatever Blanco, wasn't he?
No, there was
I'm looking at
we've read it. Yeah, it's brilliant
Yes.
anyway. But he was the guy featured in it. He was the guy running in it. One of the.
Now I can't think of his name. I can't see my books from here. So there's that Tarahumara tribe who fuel themselves on chia seeds alone. They run 50-mile marathons for pleasure. And they fuel themselves on chia seeds. So chia seeds, number one, yes, the hydrating part of it. So you see that gel that forms around, you make a chia pudding and it literally creates gel. So that chia seed pudding is loaded with gel water, structured water. It's in there. Phenomenal way to hydrate. But I will say that, you can get hydration. I don't know what your porridge was made from, but flax seeds are also hydrating. Other fiber is very hydrating also. But chia seeds, they're also loaded with omega-3s, our parent omega-3s fatty acids, which we need for our cell membranes, really important. So the alpha linoleic acid is what those chia seeds are loaded with. And we don't get enough of those in our diet, so especially vegans. People who are vegans, they don't eat fish, so they don't get their omega-3s from fish, but you can get the parent omega-3s from chia seeds. So for two reasons, chia seeds are great. But I'm sure your porridge is also, I don't know, what was the main fiber in the porridge?
So what you're saying is Stephen's porridge is not a bad second best, but the chia seed is obviously trumps.
Good job, because Dave. He won the thing on Instagram, I'm gonna go with that.
Yeah,
Dana, you're wonderful. You're speaking my language.
Very good.
Sorry, I'm only joking. No, I didn't and I see it every day with chia seeds, how much water they take to just bulk up. And I remember from that book, from other studies, that they say over the period of the day, it slowly releases the water. So it can be very good if you're in warm countries and whatever. So
it stores it too. I will say one thing about chia seeds though. People who are sensitive, it can upset your stomach. There are lectins in it. Lectins are they have to be broken down. So if you're not soaking them overnight and you're making your chia seed pudding just 15 minutes before, it can upset your stomach a little bit. So that's the one thing that we just, some people might be a little bit sensitive. My suggestion is you make your pudding overnight and then those lectins really kind of disappear. It's a good way. The same with beans. Like if you're cooking beans, you want to soak them to get rid of those lectins that can upset some people's stomach.
Yeah, I love that.
Very good.
Great top tip.
This has been fascinating. It really has been wonderful. And some of the big takeaways I've got. So water has to be individualized. People have to be very individuals. It's not a blanket statement of 4 gallons or 4 liters of water a day or a gallon of water.
Or 8 cups or whatever.
It's a case of how we live our lives. If we sit a lot, if we spend a lot of time indoors in air conditioned rooms, we're going to be naturally dehydrated. And if we eat a whole lot of cream crackers or dried processed foods, we're going to need a lot more water. So eating our water is super important. So obviously that 4th phase of water you talked about, which is fibers high in water. So your fruits, your vegetables, your beans, your chia seeds. And then movement is super important because it creates a hydraulic pump and pumps it around our body. And alcohol's not good.
Last one I had, Dana, tap water. What are your thoughts on tap water? And obviously there's a huge variance depending on where you are in the world, but thoughts on tap water versus bottled water?
Yeah, I think you need to, there's a great website here called EWG, environmentalworkinggroup.org. And you can search where you live in the States. I don't know if it's overseas, on what's in your tap water. So I think that's number one important because we had a huge problem in Lansing, Michigan, where their water was literally poisoning their children to the point where it's irreversible. It's horrendous. So I would start there. I think because of the bottle situation and the plastics and the, what it takes to move that water, it's hard to say. I think filtered tap water, a good filter, and you can also check ewg.org and you could search by what your budget is on the best filters. I think filtered tap water is probably the best way to go for your budget. I mean, for the environment. So that's my thought. I still think that there is absolutely a place for bottled water. I'm not going to go to a hotel and drink their tap water. I will go to the grocery store, pick up some bottled water, keep it with me in my hotel room. There's absolutely a place for it. But I think environmentally, we have to get those bottles. They're a huge source of landfill and problems in this.
Brilliant. EWG seems to be just America because so it seems to be just North America.
But I would still check it out for the filters. Like they have great, and it's actually phenomenal. EnvironmentEWG.org. They have lists of like the dirty dozen. So the fruits that you should be buying organic if you can, and the ones that are okay, maybe you can't afford to get organic. It's a great resource for anybody, even if they don't have the water.
And final PPS. So if someone out there, someone listening is going, right, yeah, I've been thinking about getting a water filter for ages at home. What type? Because, you've got reverse osmosis, you've got carbon water filters, you've got other. As the person who's written the book on hydration, what should be an average water filter that most people could consider getting? Not like the $10,000 one that's got diamonds and rubies in it.
Yeah. So once again, check that website because it goes by budget. We don't mention water filters in the book because of that reason, because it is such a big thing. I personally have I have a over the counter. It's about $300. It's called an AquaTrue. It's a reverse osmosis filter. I really like that one because it's somewhat affordable for many. But there are, you have to sort of know I would think that there has to be some kind of resource to see what's in your water, your tap water where you live. And if there is, fluoride is a whole nother subject in and of itself. We fluoridate our water here, which is baloney. It's a problem. I don't know why we still do that. There's one place in America that doesn't, out in Seattle somewhere. I think it's Seattle. And, fluoride is a toxin. It's directly toxic to our thyroid. But a regular filter doesn't filter out fluoride. A carbon filter doesn't filter out fluoride, but a reverse osmosis does. So I think it's a hard answer. It's not simple. It's not easy. You should invite people over to your aquifer to
come for a water party. Let's go drink loads of water. Woo!
Yeah. It's pretty great. So,
very cool.
Yeah.
Well, this has been brilliant. It really, really has, and everyone listening, this has been extremely applicable. So thanks a million for your work.
And your book is called Quench, and it's done great, hasn't it?
It's done very well. It's published in 6 languages, not Gaelic though.
Good one.
And it has a very cult following. A lot of people who, for some reason, estheticians, so skincare people, they have a huge following of skincare people because they know that your skin, starts from the inside out. So I can't leave it saying hello to my Irish friends. So Joe and Ian and Brita and Joe and their families. I just have to say hello. They're the reason I met you.
Brilliant. Oh, that's great. Well, thanks a million, Dan. I look forward to meeting you again whenever that might be. And this has been
I will
great.
be back. I'll come say hello. And if you're in New York, come look me up, come say hello. And thank you so much. This was wonderful. And I look forward to looking at some of your other books. I'm going to pick them up as well.
Thanks, Dana. Thanks so much.
Dana. You're a star.
Cheers, Dana. Lots of
Thank
love.
you.
Bye.
Cheers.
Bye.
Guess the moral of the story today is, folks, drink your water, or should you eat it? I would think eating it is a very good strategy.
And don't forget to bless your water.
Well, now you're taking it too far there.
No,
Nesty.
genuinely, without saying it weird, I've gotten the habit, every time I drink water, I'll say, thank you, water. I feel so grateful. And I drink it.
Well, I think that sounds beautiful. That sounds different than blessing it, because blessing it might have some religious connotations, which doesn't apply to everyone. It might turn some people off.
Manifest your water, folks. Manifest your water.
But saying thank you to your water, I think, is universal. I think that's a great philosophy. I think there was loads of practical tips there. Certainly,
I really enjoyed that. Really practical. It's lovely to kind of delve into one of these little, very specific aspects of health.
And it's certainly, it's just so applicable to everyone.
And 90% of people, so that's 9 out of 10 people listening today, are
likely dehydrated. Yeah. So, and I guess it comes from spending so much time indoors, not moving enough, and not eating enough foods that are high in water. Like as you said, fibrous foods are high in water, which you only get in fruits, veg, beans, legumes, whole grains, nuts and seeds. Excuse me.
Anyway, thank you so much for listening. We're really grateful for your time. Big shout out to Vivo, who sponsored this podcast. And do check out Dana's book. It is called Quench, and it's fabulous.
Yeah. Thanks, Mel. We really, really appreciate it because we love doing this podcast. Big shout out to Sean Cahill and Sarah Fawcett, who produced.
And Ralph, the little inspiration, sitting here looking at us.
Yeah. So anyway, thanks, Mel.
Bye.
Bye. Wow, we sound like singers now.